It's Thursday Night Football, and the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers are battling it out, and they're doing it for more than just bragging rights. It's for the lead in the NFC North Division. Who's going to win? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy.
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
Who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
Led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and we're diving in right now. So with that being said, I just want to say welcome all back to the channel. Thank you all for your view. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your support. And for those that are new to the channel, thank you all for deciding to tune in for the episode. I'm so very thankful. And with that having been said, I just want to say God bless. Let's dive into today's content. So here's the thing, folks. I can say this right now. The closer and closer we've gotten to this game of Lions versus Packers, with the Lions going to Lambeau and getting ready to play the Packers on Thursday Night Football, this game has more and more of an air about it of being just absolutely crucial to both teams' overall seasons. Because let's think about this realistically here. Let's just actually kind of go through this and think about it from a logical perspective. Kind of put on our thinking cap, so to speak. Both teams right now, both the Packers and the Lions, are 2-1 right now. They are the clear leaders in the NFC North Division. There's no debate about that. You have the Lions and Packers who are tied for first, and then you have the Vikings and Bears who are tied for last. Like, there's not even something in the middle to kind of have as a comparative analysis here. It's like Packers and Lions, leader division. Bears and Vikings, dead last. They are fighting for the basement while we're fighting for first. And when you think about it, when you have that kind of comparative analysis, that comparison between the two, it really starts putting into perspective just how damn important this game is for both the Packers and the Lions season. Because if you think about it, just because of how things are already in the start of the season, we already know how the statistics look. We already know the historical trends, but I'm just going to put them out there anyway. For teams that are 2-1, they have a 54% chance of making the playoffs if they start the season 2-1. If they start the season 0-3, which is what the Vikings and the Bears are, I think it's like less than 10% of a shot that they have to make the playoffs. And realistically, if you take a look at both the Vikings and the Bears, I would say the Bears have like a 1% shot because their offense is crap, their defense is crap, whereas with the Vikings, their offense is great, but their defense can't stop a cold winter. So when you think about it, this game between the Packers and the Lions is for huge implications, because this is not just a primetime game. It's not just a division rivalry game. This is, in essence, you're playing for all the marbles. You're kind of playing for bragging rights here. You're playing for a lot of stuff on Thursday Night Football between these two division rivals, and I'm telling you this right now, the more and more I've started looking into this, the more I'm thinking this is going to be a tight game. I am not seeing this as a blowout by either team. I would be absolutely shocked. I would be surprised, actually, if either team went out and absolutely laid a goose egg or the other team just completely dominated the other. Because the more I've looked at both of these teams, the more they're evenly matched up than what I thought they were. Because realistically, when you take a look at how each team does in terms of their output on both offense and defense, as I'm about to bring up here in a couple of moments, it's actually pretty well evenly stacked up. But when we start getting into the comparative analysis about what teams they've played, that's when there starts to be a little bit of a discrepancy. That's when it starts to pull away a little bit. So if you all stick with me, I'm going to throw you a lot of numbers today because, again, I am a stats dude. But again, at this point in the season, we're almost a month into the season. Hard to believe that already. We're in week 4 now. So by this point, teams have kind of figured out what they are. They've kind of figured out who they are, how they're going to run things. Now it's just kind of fine-tuning things. Now it's just trying to, okay, let's get more efficient with what we're doing. But this is who we are as a team, so to speak. So, without further ado, let's start getting into the statistical analysis here really quickly. So, when you start taking a look at the Lions and the Packers in terms of their offensive output and their defensive output, this is what you're going to see. In terms of the Lions on offense, they're ranked 8th in total yards. They're ranked 7th in passing yards. They're ranked 11th in rushing yards. They're ranked 2nd in their passing average. They're tied for 24th in their rushing average. That's not good. They're ranked 14th in first downs. They're ranked 20th in scoring drive percentage. They're tied for 12th in both penalties and in terms of total points. So, overall, you're still talking about a very top high-end offense, but it's not as good as where it was last year. Now, I already know that there have been some commentators that have been like, well, why, David, have you been so critical of the defense, but not about the offense? I'm going to kind of address that a little bit later today, but that's going to be a little bit later on in this episode, so you're going to have to kind of stick with me to figure out the answer to that. But we got a lot of other stuff to get to here, so hold on to your hats. That was the Lions' offensive rankings. Now let's take a look at the Packers. The Packers, in terms of total yards, they're ranked 22nd. Passing yards, they're tied for 18th. Rushing yards, they're tied for 23rd. Passing average, tied for 11th. Rushing average, tied for 26th. Still not really good in same comparison with the Lions. They're ranked 24th in first downs. They're 14th in terms of scoring drive percentage. They're 31st in terms of penalties. And they're 8th in terms of total points. Now, the comparative analysis between the Lions offense and the Packers offense is relatively a stark one in the sense of the rankings. And the reason why is, well, if you take a look at the comparative analysis between the two in terms of rankings, the Lions clearly outrank the Packers in almost every single statistical category. And if I'm looking at this correctly, the only areas where the Packers outrank the Lions in terms of offensive output is in terms of scoring drive percentage and in terms of total points. But even there, the difference is very marginal. You're talking about a difference of literally 8 points on offense in terms of total points, and you're talking about maybe about 3.5 better scoring drive percentage. So again, you're not really talking about much difference in terms of the Lions and the Packers. So what are we looking here? I'm kind of going to put this in like a bout of like boxing, if you will. Okay, who's got the better offense? Who doesn't have the better offense? In this case, the clear win, in my opinion, goes to the Lions in terms of the offense because statistically, they've got a better offense. Rank-wise, they've got a better offense. And realistically, if you just watch the tape between both offenses, the Lions have the better offense by far. They've been able to be much more efficient. They've been able to be much more explosive than what the Packers have been through the first 3 games of the year. So in terms of offensive output, the Lions definitely win in terms of stats, rankings, film review, everything that I've got. That's how it works. Now, that's the offensive comparison between the Lions and the Packers. Again, kind of going through this a little bit fast. I do apologize, but again, I'm trying to put this all together in a decently sized video. Let's get to the defensive output. Again, we're going to take a look at it. You take a look at the Lions on defense. They're ranked 15th in points against them. They're ranked 11th in total yards. They're ranked 19th in passing yards. They're ranked top 5, ranked 5th in rushing yards, 12th in passing average, 5th in rushing average, tied 17th in first downs, tied 8th in penalties, tied 22nd in turnovers, and they're tied 11th in scoring drive percentage. I'm going to say this right now. That is a massive improvement from where we were at this point last year in terms of the Lions on defense. Last year on defense, the Lions defense was so bad, like we were virtually ranked dead last in everything. The fact that we're ranked top 5 in 2 statistical categories and we're ranked top 10 in 3 of them, that right there is already a massive improvement in terms of where we were last year. So absolutely, I'm going to give praise where it's due. The Lions offense is Lions defense has definitely made significant strides compared to where we were last year. So, that's the Lions' defensive output. Let's take a look at the Packers on defense. The Packers on defense, they're tied for 13th in terms of points against them. They're ranked 15th in terms of total yards. They're ranked 10th in terms of passing yards, tied 27th in rushing yards, so they're definitely a lot worse than the Lions in that category. They're ranked 11th in passing average. They're tied for 18th in rush average. They're tied 22nd in first downs. They're tied 19th in both penalties and turnovers, and they're tied 17th in terms of scoring drive percentage. Now, when you take a look at this, yet again, there is some comparative analysis that kind of matches up. The Packers have a better defense by 1 point in terms of points again, so that doesn't really compare all that well. But in terms of total yards, the Lions have a better defense. In terms of passing yards, the Packers have the better defense. In terms of rushing yards, the Lions have a better defense. So it kind of goes back and forth a little bit between the two teams. The rankings are not that much different in terms of most areas. The only areas where it's a stark difference is in terms of penalties and in terms of rushing yards. Because in rushing yards, like I said, the Lions are ranked 5th. The Packers are tied for 27th. They're near the bottom of the league. In terms of penalties, the Lions are tied for 8th. The Packers are tied for 19th. Everything else pretty much kind of almost matches up relatively well. The only thing, like I said, that doesn't really match up really well is the Lions' rush defense versus the Packers' defense and the penalties. So realistically, in my opinion, if you're going to talk about who wins the defensive battle here, I actually kind of think it's kind of a draw, because the one thing we've always known about the Packers, at least for the last couple of years, they have a pretty damn good defense. They have a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball, and that was going to be the strength of the Packers going into this game, was their defense. So realistically, because of how well the Lions' defense has started to play this year, and the fact that the Packers have had a good defense for quite a while, I'm going to kind of give the slight advantage to the Packers, but I realistically call it more of a draw, in my opinion, because the Lions have the better statistical rankings. The Packers have just had the longevity to go on their side. So, that's offense, that's defense. Now, there's a lot more that I want to talk about here, and one of the things I wanted to talk about, because again, as I just said, the Packers, in my opinion, have the slight nod on defense because of their talent and longevity in that department. But there are some issues that the Packers have in terms of their defense going into this game. Number one, they don't have no Devondre Campbell. He was ruled out yesterday. Losing Campbell on their defense, that's a big, big loss. And on top of that, it's still questionable whether or not Jair Alexander is going to play. Questionable means 50-50. And I'm going to just say this right now. While I would like it if we didn't have to face Jair Alexander, chances are he's going to play. Again, considering the magnitude of how important this game is, I can't see how he's going to miss that game. I can't see how he's going to miss this game. For me, it's like, listen, if you have the ability to go, you just kind of suck up the pain and you kind of deal with it. And that's exactly what I expect to see out of the Packers players and the Lions players that are ruled as questionable. I'd be almost willing to bet almost all of them are going to play, regardless of their injury designation. But here's the thing. The defense, as I said, is kind of the closest kind of matchup battle between these two teams. So I was like, okay, here, I kind of want to take a look at the advanced defensive statistics, the advanced defensive metrics. So here's what I wanted to look at. Here's the thing. One of the best ways for a defense to impact an offense is how well they're able to get after the quarterback. Now, I'm going to say this right now to be fair to Packers fans, because I know Packers fans, as soon as I start talking about this, they're going to want to bring this up. If we didn't have yet last week's game against the Falcons, some of these numbers would not look nearly as good. But again, I'm trying to be fair to both sides of this argument here. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of these advanced metrics really quickly. In terms of getting after the quarterback, take a look at this one. This is kind of going to set up the whole part of what I'm going to bring up to with this whole analysis, if you will. Take a look at how much these two teams blitz. The Packers so far have blitzed 44 times in the NFL. In comparison, the Lions have only blitzed 28. Now, my Lions fans might instantly be like, well, maybe Aaron Glenn's just not being aggressive. He doesn't like to blitz. That's possible. The Packers fan on the other side might say, oh, well, you guys don't like to blitz at all. You guys are scared. You guys are conservative, blah, 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 blah. And to be fair, fine, whatever. We're going to have that division rivalry even as fans. But when you start taking a look at it much more closely, it gets even further as far as what I'm going to get here into the disparity in my analysis. Take a look at the blitz percentage. Again, the Packers are substantially higher than the Lions. 35.5 blitz percentage to the Lions only 20.6. So what does that in essence mean? The Packers love to blitz the freaking defense on opposing offenses. If I recall correctly, they're like in the top 10 as far as overall passing in terms of all overall blitzing and blitz percentage. They might actually even be top 5. But that's my whole point here. From the Lions to the Packers love to blitz. They love to bring that pressure. They love to bring extra men to try to disrupt the passing game and also potentially get more guys in the box to get tackles for losses in the run game. Now, let's move into some of these other categories. In terms of hurries, it's much more even-keeled. The Packers actually have one less hurry than the Lions do. It's 19-20 between the Packers and the Lions. And again, the hurry percentage, very, very even-keeled too. Packers, 15.3%. Lions, 14.7%. And then again, you get into the sacks. Packers have 9, Lions have 8. Pressures, Packers have 35, Lions have 37. Pressure percentage, 28.2% for the Packers, 27.2% for the Lions. So here's the thing. What's the only huge area of disparity in terms of the advanced defensive metrics? It's the blitzing. It's the blitz percentage. Everything else, the Lions and the Packers are almost dead even keel. You want to know what this tells me? Here's the thing. If the Lions are not nearly blitzing as much as the Packers are, but yet they're still getting the same results that the Packers are doing, that pretty much tells me this. The Packers are relying on the blitz to get the results that they have in everything else. The Packers are relying. I think I said the Lions. Whatever. The Packers rely on the blitz to get the results they're looking for. The Lions don't. The Lions use the blitz if they feel the need to, but they don't rely on it. Because again, when you talk about a 15% difference in blitz percentage and almost double in terms of the amount of overall blitzes, but yet everything else matches up in terms of hurries, in terms of hurry percentage, sacks, pressure, and pressure percentage, at that point, what that tells me is this. The Packers have to blitz in order to get the hurries, in order to get the sacks, in order to get the pressures. That right there is a keen little piece of information because it means this. If the Packers don't blitz, they're not as likely to get home to the quarterback, which means if the Lions are expecting pretty much what the Lions should expect on offense from the Packers defense is a lot of blitzing because that's what the Packers are going to do to try to get after Goff and try and get those running backs in the backfield. But again, a defense's over-aggressive nature can sometimes come back to bite them in the butt, especially when you consider the fact that when a team like that blitzes, that means they're open and vulnerable to play action, and it also means stuff like draws and things like that, which are kind of like, misdirection plays. So again, using that aggressiveness, I think, is something that Ben Johnson is definitely going to want to use against the Packers when he goes up against them tonight on offense. So, I thought I wanted to bring that up really quickly, too. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is the comparative analysis in terms of both the Lions and the Packers as far as who they've played in the past on both offense and defense. Because here's the thing. As I just said earlier here in this episode, we've gotten so far into the season where it's like, okay, now you can start kind of using the statistics as a comparison to be like, okay, this is who you've played in the past. This is how you've done in the past. Now let's kind of take a look at what we can expect against this opponent we're about to play tonight. Because again, we're a month into the season. At this point, teams already know what they're going to do. Teams have already figured out this is who they are and what they're trying to figure out, or trying to do from what they figured out. Pardon me. So I decided to take a look at how the Lions' offense is done against past defenses and the Packers' offense is done against past defenses, and vice versa. So here's what I found out. If you take a look at how the Lions' offense has played against in terms of rankings against other defenses, take a look at this. The 2 wins that the Lions have are against the better defenses, the best defenses that we've played. The Falcons are ranked 7th in points. They're ranked 8th in total yards. They're ranked 4th in passing yards. They're ranked 18th in rushing yards. They're tied 11th in first downs, and they're ranked 8th in scoring drive percentage. Take a look at the Chiefs. The Lions against the Chiefs are ranked 4th in points. They're ranked 6th in total yards, 6th in passing yards, 11th in rushing yards, 4th in first downs, and ranked 2nd in terms of drive scoring percentage. So, okay here, let's back up here. Against the 2 better defenses that the Lions have played, they've won. They've won against top 10 defenses when their offense has gone out to play them. Now, to be fair, I know Packers fans are going to be like, oh yeah, well where's the Seahawks ranked? Because the Seahawks we know are not that good, and you'd be right. The Seahawks are ranked 29th in points, 30th in yards, 31st in passing yards. They do have a really good rush defense, though. They're ranked 6th. They're ranked 30th in first downs, and they're tied for 28th in scoring drive percentage, which is kind of weird when you think about it. The Seahawks have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but yet we somehow lost to them. Now, obviously, I already know Lions fans are going to point out to the fact that we had turnovers that resulted in a 14-point swing. I've already gone over that. My whole point is this. Lions offense went and tied the game, got us into overtime. then the Lions defense kind of faltered at the end there. Again, I'm not going back to that. I'm just putting the stats out there for what they are. Again, when the Lions offense has gone up against really good defenses, they have found a way to win, and they have found a way to win in pretty good stride. Now, I already have mentioned the Falcons because one of the things that I can do in this comparative analysis is the Falcons have played both the Packers and the Lions. And the funny thing about it is the Lions beat the Falcons, but the Packers didn't beat the Falcons. So that's kind of interesting. One team did beat the Falcons, one team didn't. Now, I know that doesn't really amount to much, but again, it's kind of interesting because the Falcons beat the Packers by 1, and we beat the Falcons by 14. That's kind of an interesting comparison there, just saying it. But when you take a look at the other defenses that the Packers offense has played against, they have been kind of interesting as far as a night and day comparison. Again, the Falcons defense was really good. The Saints defense that they just played, really good. And they only beat that Saints defense by 1 point. The Saints defense is ranked 6th in total points, 9th in total yards, 8th in passing yards, 10th in rushing yards, 5th in freaking first downs, and 14th in scoring drive percentage. That's a pretty good defense. That's a pretty good defense from the Saints. But the problem is that if you take a look at the fact that that was their only other win, take a look at the team that they also beat in terms of the Bears. The Bears are probably, if not the worst defense, they're one of the worst defenses. 31st in points, 29th in total yards, 30th in passing yards, 20th in rushing yards, 25th in first downs, and tied for 28th in scoring drive percentage. My whole point is this. When you take a look at how the Lions offense and the Packers offense has gone up against opposing defenses, it's actually kind of pretty even. The Lions have gone against 2 really good defenses, and they've won. And they've had a really bad defense that they lost against. Whereas, when you take a look at the Packers, on the other hand, they've had 2 really good defenses they've gone against. They've won against one, they've lost against one, and they've had a bad defense. But the whole point I'm trying to get at here is both teams have gone against 2 really good defenses and 1 really bad defense. So, that's the kind of comparison, if you will, between the Lions offense and Packers offense versus past defenses. That's what I'm trying to get there with that whole thing. But here's, like I said, where the discrepancy starts to kind of come in for these two teams and where ultimately I think it kind of busts wide open. When you take a look at what the Lions defense has had to go up against in terms of opposing offenses, here's what I can say right now. The Lions, again, much like on offense in terms of other defenses, they've gone against 2 really good offenses and 1 really bad offense. And it's pretty easy to figure out which ones are which. The Chiefs offense and the Seahawks offense are one of the better ones in the NFL. The Seahawks offense is like top 10-ish. The Chiefs offense is like top 10, top 5. But the bad offense is the Falcons offense. The Falcons offense is like ranked mid-tier or below average in virtually every single ranking I could find. And I'm trying to speed this up a little bit here, but again, Chiefs ranked 9th in points, ranked 5th in yards, ranked 5th in passing yards, ranked 10th in rushing yards, ranked 9th in first downs, ranked 10th in scoring drive percentage. Okay, there's one of the top offenses. Seahawks ranked 4th in points, ranked 17th in total yards, ranked 13th in passing yards, ranked 16th in rushing yards, tied 6th in first downs, ranked 5th in scoring drive percentage. So the yards for the Seahawks aren't there, but their ability to score is, and that's more of what matters in terms of being an offense, is your ability to score. And then the Falcons, like I said, they're the one that's kind of below average, kind of a bad offense. 23rd in points, 26th in yards, 29th in passing yards, 9th in rushing yards, 21st in first downs, and 16th in scoring drive percentage. So again, much like the Lions offense versus past defenses, 2 really good offenses that our defense has gone against, 1 really bad offense that our defense has gone against. But this is where it busts wide open. The Packers defense has not gone against any good offenses. I'm going to say that again. The Packers defense has not gone against a single good offense. And I have the proof with me. Again, I just told you what the Falcons were. 23rd, 26th, 29th, 9th, 21st, and 16th. Now take a look at who they've gone against in their other games, which is the Bears. Yeah, right. And then you have the Saints. The Bears, we already know, they're crap. They're bad. They're ranked 29th in freaking total yards. They're ranked 27th in points. They're ranked 31st in passing yards. They're 17th in rushing yards, tied 27th in terms of first downs, and 26th in scoring drive percentage. The Saints, on the other hand, having just signed Derek Carr to improve that offense, 25th in points, 20th in total yards, 15th in passing yards, 21st in rushing yards, tied 24th in first downs, and 24th in scoring drive percentage. Here's what I'm going to say this right now. The best offense that the Packers defense has gone against so far is the Saints offense. And again, virtually every single ranking that the Saints have, save one, is below average. The only ranking that the Saints have that's actually decent is their passing yards. That's ranked 15th. Everything else is 16th or lower. And it's the same with the freaking Falcons, except for their rushing yards. And it's the same with the freaking Bears across the entirety of the board. My whole point is this. When you start taking a look at the comparative analysis, like I said, these teams match up rather well. The Packers and the Lions, they match up really well in terms of the statistical rankings and everything else, and in terms of opponents that they played in the past in terms of statistical rankings. But where everything kind of busts wide open, where everything kind of falls apart, is the fact that the Packers' defense has not had to play against a really good offense yet this year. In fact, all of the offenses that they've played have been remarkably mediocre or subpar. And here's the other thing. Take a look at who the Lions have on offense versus anybody else that the freaking Packers have played against. Derek Carr is the best other quarterback that the Packers have played against. Jared Goff's definitely a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Jared Goff is definitely a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Jared Goff is definitely a better quarterback than Desmond Ridder. Okay. Let's put that in perspective. The Lions' offensive weapons, as far as a conglomerate group, as far as an overall group, are better than anything that the Packers have played on defense, as far as receiving talent, as far as offensive line talent, as far as running back talent, and definitely in terms of, offensive coordinator talent. That's my whole point here. The real reason that I'm saying what I'm saying is this. Like I said, I expect this to be a close game. But what I honestly think is going to make the tide and make the difference here is the Lions' offense is going to have just a little bit more offensive firepower than what the Packers are going to be used to having to handle. And here's what's going to happen. I honestly expect that the Lions' defense is going to try and keep this trend rolling. I sincerely hope so. Otherwise, this whole analysis kind of falls apart. But the whole thing is this. The Lions' defense, they're feeling really good right now. They're going up against an offense that has a quarterback that's only completing 53% of his passes, which is one spot above Zach Wilson, who's at the very bottom of the league. Yes, they are going to most likely get Aaron Jones and Christian Watson back tonight. That is important to the Packers. But you're still missing the entire left side of your offensive line. You're not going to have Jenkins. You're not going to have Bakhtiari. Those are big losses. I get it. Your other left tackle is playing really well, but again, he's not Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari is a 5-time All-Pro Bowl player for a reason. My whole point is this. I do expect a close game. I am not at all expecting a blowout, but I do think that the Lions are going to come in with the better offense. They're a lot more healthy than the Packers, and on top of that, I kind of go with the basic history trend here. The Lions have won the last 3 games against the Packers here, and on top of that, this is not like last year when you had Aaron Rodgers. You've now got Jordan Love, so again, I think the Lions go into Lambeau. I think they win a squeaker. I think we're probably looking at less than probably a 1-score differential here. I think at most it might be more than 6 points. That's about it. I'm not expecting more than a touchdowns difference between either of these two teams. So at most, I'm thinking like, maybe 31-28, maybe 35-28, something like that. That's about as big of a difference as I'm really realistically willing to go at this point. But we'll see what happens. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on it. That's the end of my analysis. So without further ado, I'm going to say thank you all for watching in another episode of Motor City Mania MCM. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode that I got coming at the end of this one. And I highly encourage y'all to tune in for my live stream tonight when we're going to be calling the game as it comes in. I also just want to say thank you all for what you guys do. And I highly encourage y'all to do this. Please, by all means, if you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, please, I highly encourage y'all, make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page. I also encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere and anywhere that you can with everyone and anyone that you can. Let's keep growing the channel. And with that being said, folks, this is Motor City Mania signing off for now. And until I see you guys later tonight for the live stream, I just want to say thank you all for your view, thank you all for your patience, thank you all for your support. And with that, God bless. And until later tonight, I just want to see you